a digital world, but it's also not a digital world because it's scanned of the environment against something that's painted physically in time. But then this is also, it's, I don't know, like that time perception when you've got like this technology next to something that's so raw, like the canvas. I don't know.
That blurring of digital and physical.
Yeah. And that's also why I really like Annika Yee's works, because she kind of blends that.
Hi, and welcome to episode 1 of The Maker's Memo, where I interview creatives who use technology to give an edge to their work. Today, I'm here with Rachy McEwan. Hello.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself, let us know what you do and how you got to where you are professionally.
So, hi, yes, my name is Rachy McEwan. I am a interdisciplinary artist and I guess researcher, primarily a painter and a coder. I'm from Scotland, Glasgow, and I live and work in London. I moved to London about 3 years ago to study my master's in material futures. But in Glasgow, I studied my BA in painting and printmaking. So I guess, I am a painter, but I moved to kind of broaden my, I guess, skill set within the arts. I was really interested in like the scientific concepts I was exploring within my work when I was back home in Glasgow when I was a painter, like primarily. And I started working with mycelium. So then I was like, okay, I need to find a university that can kind of give me that kind of option. So they had a biolab at Central St Martin's. So I decided to enroll in the course called Material Futures. And yeah, that's kind of, and then I graduated from that course in summer in 2024. And now I've just got a studio in central London and doing shows and trying to make it as an artist, I guess.
And what would you say Material Futures is?
So it's like an integration between engineering, science, technology, and design. So, I mean, when I first went into the course, I was like kind of still like really, really adamant to still paint. And so it's a 2-year master's. And in my first year, I kept getting kind of like backlash from the tutors being like, hey, like you're just like doing your concepts, exploring it, and then turning it into paintings. Like, why don't you just like do something completely different and like forget about painting for a bit? So for my final project for my master's, I didn't do any painting. I developed a website for, that project that I can talk about.
Yes, we will get onto that.
Yeah.
And have you always had an interest in visual arts? You know, when did that start and why do you think you were so drawn to it?
I mean, I've always kind of drew as a kid, but I actually, when I was in like high school, I actually really wanted to be a vet, and I was like really interested in biology and science, but I never really got the grades. And then I ended up doing like portfolio courses and got into Glasgow School of Art, and I thought I may as well, stay in Glasgow and study there. So, because I actually did get into Central St Martin's before my master's for the BA course there, but I really wanted to try the painting and printmaking course in Glasgow because it was like really good reviews and yeah.
That's really cool. And as everybody knows, mushrooms are life, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with them. Them and lichens are like my favourite thing to talk about.
So congratulations on recent projects, Money Trees, and an augmented reality version of which was showcased last autumn at the Saatchi Gallery here in London. And then you have an ongoing project, Xylophobia Dendrophilia, which for the benefit of listeners and watchers, xylophobia being fear of wooded places, forests, and dendrophilia being a love of...
Yeah, so it's kind of like this fear and love relationship.
Fear and love.
Yeah.
And that project is an ongoing...
That's an ongoing project, yes.
Ongoing project, and it expands on Money Trees as a growing virtual landscape / gaming environment comprising 3D photogrammic scans of the capital city's urban trees. And these photos are collected by community members. we met recently at the TXP and Restless Egg Art Made AI event in Shoreditch, where elements of those projects were showcased. But could you just describe each project and explain really what you were trying to achieve or express with them?
Yeah, I can kind of start by telling you a bit about money trees, because that's kind of like how it all started. Was it actually started when I was going for a walk near my flat, and I noticed this poster on a sycamore tree, and it said like, these 4 100-year-old trees are due to be felled due to a temporary footpath that was going to be built for railway construction. And on it said like, notice this tree. And I was like, oh, what is this group? So I contacted them, or like looked up what Notice This Tree was, and it was a community-led group. They're like a bunch of activists that kind of like, I guess, try to protect trees within London. So I got involved with them, and I met a really lovely filmmaker called Katie, who made a documentary around a tree that was felled in Hackney for building purposes. And I then kind of got involved with that group and thought, okay, how can I, help to save these trees? So I actually spoke on another podcast briefly with Tree Lady Talks, and she got me in contact with a man called Kenton Rogers, who runs a company called Tree Economics, and part of his company owns this platform called iTree, which basically tracks the canopy cover of London's urban trees, and they also do like ground work where they do volunteer work where they track like the health of the trees within London, and they're involved with the council and things like that. So I kind of tried to get him to help me with like these 4 sycamore trees, but unfortunately they were cut down. So I was like, hey, how can I like build something that can, I guess, combat like tree felling for like no particular reason? They didn't even build the footpath in Hackney that they said they were going to build. Anyway, right. So those 4 trees were just lost, and they were right in front of flats. So I think like a bunch of the community were like really upset. So I looked into like the system that currently exists of how they evaluate trees in London, and there's a thing called the CAVAT system, where how they, I guess, decide the monetary value of an asset of a tree within London. And one of like the elements is like how many people use that tree, how many, like what area in London is it? Like some trees in London, Soho, are worth like £1.6 million, whereas other trees just don't have a value at all. So they just cut them down, and no one can say anything about it. I was like, so how do I then turn these trees that are due to be cut down into, I guess, assets? So I decided to build a platform where people could go to a tree and take a photograph of it. And well, I would first of all, I would list a bunch of trees on the website that from the community group Notice This Tree that were like in threat of being cut down. And then people could then go to the tree on the website, find its location, go to the tree, take a photograph of it. And then that photograph then got sent directly to my Firebase, which is basically just like a storage software that can store the photographs that were sent to me. And then I turned those photographs into 3D models. So I use a software called Metashape, and that then transforms these photographs into 3D models. But you need like hundreds of photos.
And is that like an automated process?
Yes.
Or do you have to manually manipulate to make it into 3D?
No, it is automated, but after the 3D model is made, I then put it onto a different software called Blender. I then modify it a little bit, like enhance things, and I then kind of upload that asset to the Money Trees website. So that's all done on like a hosting platform called Glitch. where anyone can like go and write code. And I use JavaScript, 3GS to render these models online. And then the idea was these models would then either be put onto the blockchain as NFTs, and people could then trade and buy the money with them, trade and buy the 3D models that were all on this like map that I'd built. And the money that was put into those NFTs would then be collected, and then if the tree was cut down, the money would then go back into replanting a new tree. I forgot to say initially at the start, but when you went to the tree initially, you would pay a fee of like whatever you could afford, and that would then go into maintaining that tree. So most of the reason why trees are cut down in London is because they don't have enough money to maintain them. They don't have enough money to look after them, check if they've got decay inside them. So there's a process called sonic tomography, where they put sensors around the outside of a tree, and it basically pulses sound through the trunk of the tree and detects whether it's decayed or not. But we don't really have the money to do that to every tree and check that it's not going to fall over, whatnot. So that was the basis of money trees.
And can I ask, with the NFTs, was it a case of owning, for example, a single pixel, or more than that? Like, what was the kind of the coverage? I suppose?
So initially it was just going to be like the model would just be the singular model that you get, but then I kind of altered it as time went on to be pixels. So I turned all of my 3D models into point cloud models. So you could then trade and sell pixels within your model. So multiple people could own like one digital asset at the same time. So then moving forward from that, I did my show at the Saatchi, and I kind of explored this augmented reality piece that I showed there, where you could see the digital asset in any space any space you wanted to, through a app called Memo. A really cool bunch of guys that I know kind of run this app, and they've helped me a lot with like the gaming process and kind of got me into, I guess, what I'm doing now.
And when we were at that event recently, and I was scanning with my phone, was that essentially what the Saatchi thing was?
Oh no! Well, it was a QR. It was a QR code that you would then access an app. And then you'd click on my project, and you just hold your phone up, and anyone can actually do it now. If they go onto Meadow and then look up money trees, they can see the tree that I created for that particular show. It was called the Save Me tree because it had Save Me spray painted on it.
Nice. And with the Money Trees project, what I really like about it is that it's like there's real world impact there. It's actually not just enjoying the art for the sake of it. It's essentially trying to save the planet a bit in some small way.
And hoping to get people to notice that urban trees in London and why they're so important for communities. And I think sometimes they become overlooked. And
And tell me more about xylophobia dendrophilia, because I mentioned it earlier, but
we
didn't dig into that so much.
So taking the project further was, I kind of lost interest in the NFT world and blockchain world. And I thought, how can I create something that, because I found that lots of people aren't really educated in blockchain knowledge, and not many people want to buy NFTs anymore. Well, I don't know, in my opinion, with the groups that I was talking to. I was doing these workshops with youth workshops, and younger people, and no one kind of knew about it. So I decided to, when I take the 3D scan of the tree, this comes with a 2D texture. It's called a UV map. So it's basically, if you were to unwrap a digital model, it would come with a texture that's kind of all messy. So then I would then paint this 2D texture and then remap it onto the model. So the 3D model is actually painted.
Interesting. And is that oil on canvas?
Yes, oil on canvas, yeah. That's what I've always painted in. And it's quite fun because the 3D models are all different shapes and sizes. So, you know, I can have a canvas that's like 2.5 meters long, but then 10 centimeters wide. Yeah, those paintings they're very challenging paintings because they're kind of all like messy. So I started that kind of process and then thought, okay, this would be quite cool to do with younger people. So I trialed doing painting the 2D textures with younger people, and found that, you know, you could get really cool 2D textures. It didn't have to be very accurate to the 2D textured photograph. So, you know, you'd have like multicolored, weird 3D models that I could host on the website. So moving forward with this, I'm actually working with Fairman Woods Contemporary, and I'm running some youth workshops to then add to the website. So after this kind of idea of like doing these workshops, I thought, okay, I basically recently read this book called Emerson's Guide to Worlding by Ian Cheng, and I've been to a few presentations about gaming worlds and building games, and got really interested in the idea of turning all of these 3D models that I've collected over, I guess, 6 months into like a sort of game map. And I got really interested in the idea of collecting data and having this game map kind of play out itself. So the game map isn't actually playable. It's not playable right now, and I don't think it will be, but you would just kind of move through it. And the idea is I'm going to take real-time data from urban trees within London. So carbon sequestration, soil moisture, and like temperature to, I guess, detect the health of the tree. So people would then log on to the game, and I'm not too sure how I'm going to make it so it manipulates itself yet, but basically the game map will change over time depending on the health of the tree or whether it's even there anymore or things like that.
That's fascinating. And what's the software you're using? Are you actually using game engine tech?
I'm not actually using game engine tech.
Okay.
I'm doing it all through code. So
right.
It's really low tech, kind of. Yeah, I guess it's all of it is going to be, so because it's not through a game engine, I'm actually inputting all of my own 3D assets.
Mm-hmm. And what's the application for that you're using?
So, well, I just used the Metashape, and then I used JavaScript, 3GS to upload the models, and then it's just HTML, CSS code, and then it's all just built online. And then it's hosted on Netlify afterwards. Okay, great. And the coding part then, is this something that you've got to grips with over the years, or did you get involved when you were much younger and you're quite a whiz with it? Like, I'm not a whiz at all. So, I mean, I say that my practice is like very collaborative. Like, I do nothing on my own. Like, I'm never an I in my practice. It initially started actually when I met a technician at CSM called Felix.
Remind me, CSM?
Central St. Martin's.
Oh, yes, of course.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And he was interested in painting, and I was interested in, you know, getting into like kind of more techie kind of stuff. And he kind of, I don't know, inspired me to want to learn. And then, so he helped me a lot with my Money Trees project. And then since then, I met the Meadow team, and they kind of have helped me over time, playing around with Unity, which is another kind of software that you can use. Unity is what I built the Saatchi augmented reality on. I'm now collaborating on a project with a friend called Steve Zaffirio, and he is helping me with the real-time data and the coding. So I kind of approached him with this idea of, you know, I've got these 3D models, I've got these paintings, I want to like do more paintings. And he was really into maybe building an installation with me for this project. So the plan is kind of build this game app, and he's currently 3D printing sensors and using an ESP32 to basically record data, which is temperature, carbon, and soil moisture. So the idea is I'll maybe set up an installation with a real plant or a tree and build like a console that you can then basically, the game will be on like a little screen rather than on a website. And you'll be able to like move through that and then see what this data, I guess, can do to like this little world that I've created.
Like a little Game Boy or a Switch or something.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And have you got actually anything in motion in terms of where that installation might be and when, or is it just a dreams for now and hopefully?
I guess dreams for now. So the plan is I'm looking into like displaying this in like several exhibitions, but one in particular will be in March in Amsterdam. And then moving forward, hopefully when I've finished kind of the project, I'll show it somewhere else in London.
And obviously, you know, your sort of first love has been painting by hand.
Yes.
But you've become more of a creative technologist, I suppose, in some respects. What are your thoughts about contemporary artists and the integration of digital technologies in their work? I'm curious whether you think those who shun multimedia formats, digital formats, and just stick to, you know, quote unquote analog art making, whether they're missing out on expressing themselves as fully. What do you think about that?
I think that I have friends that are just primarily painters from my previous studies, and I don't think they're missing out at all. I think like if they want to just paint, they will just paint. But I think that I had this like weird drive to like want to explore my concepts deeper into like a design level concept where I would like explore it to a point where I could then make a change, I guess. And I felt like I was really missing out on that when I was just a painter, because it was almost just visual and you didn't really know if anyone took anything away from that painting to actually make the change. So in my practice, I was like, okay, I need to kind of explore these new technologies that can then be implemented into art making. And I guess that's all been explored through Money Trees and how that's expressed.
And it's still live, isn't it, as a
Money
website?
Trees, yeah.
People are
still working.
Do you get responses as well from people who?
Yeah, so I still work with the Notice This Tree. So every time that they post something about trees being felled, which it's like UK based. So I mean, you see it from like all over there, all over UK. So I try to upload as many opportunities for people to go and, you know, create this thing. So I'm hosting it all on Google's API, like GIS map. So when you access the website, it is just Google Maps, and then all the models are kind of placed within that. And then that's why I want to kind of transform that into like a landscape eventually.
I'd be interested to hear if you've actually made new friends or new connections through the people who've contributed to the project.
Yeah. Lots of people are like really interested, I guess. Now.
Great.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about what and who inspires you in your creative work.
I guess like my main inspiration is, well, I mean, I get all my ideas when I'm I've got really bad insomnia, so in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, I come up with my ideas, or when I'm in nature, like I miss Scotland quite a lot for that purpose, getting out and just, I mean, I love solo walking, so I now go to Epping Forest and most of my ideas come then. But in terms of artists, I obviously have like the classic painters of like Monet and Francis Bacon, but when I look at artists that are kind of merging this kind of computational science with art, I look to Anneke Yee and other people like Neri Oxman and Ian Cheng, for example. These are all artists that I really know.
And how about going to visit galleries in London? I mean, you've obviously got a huge amount on your doorstep, but I don't know if it's, I don't know. it's probably full of tourists and
yeah, I do
necessarily
try to go to most of the openings, but yeah, sometimes I just need I need to sleep because there's so much on. But yeah, and I do try. I mean, I go to the bigger galleries, but less so than the contemporary ones. I think.
And tell us where you are in your professional life at the moment. Are you doing any residencies? Like, what's your kind of typical working day? What does it look like?
Well, I currently still work kind of in a coffee shop just to earn some extra money, but I've got a studio, so I'm just painting in my studio, and then I do calls with my collaborators currently because they're not all in London, and meet with people. And then, yeah, most of my days are spent painting, to be honest, and coding. So once I finish a painting, I'll then upload it and then, put it into thing. So that's all I'm kind of working on at the moment.
So when you're not working your coffee shop job, you're painting, you're coding.
Yeah, painting, or I'm in Epping Forest looking at trees.
All right, lovely. What makes you excited about the influx of digital technology into the visual arts sector?
Well, first of all, I think that it adds another layer to this kind of visual arts that we're all looking at today. But I also think the integration of like the technology within the arts is, I don't know, I guess like really pressing and needed. And I like this idea of like the duality of something that's like, well, within my work, I've worked with like e-ink screens against canvas, and I like that idea of something that's like a digital world, but it's also not a digital world because it's a scanned of the environment against something that's painted physically in time. But then this is also, it's, I don't know, like that time perception when you've got like this technology next to something that's so raw, like the canvas. I don't know.
That blurring of digital and physical.
Yeah, and that's also why I really like Annika Yee's works, because she kind of blends that kind of like what even is a machine. She talks about the biological machine and how, well, we kind of like machines aren't really other to us. We are kind of like nature and technology and humans are all kind of blurred. Where's the lines between nature and technology, like that, it's not, it doesn't exist.
Well, is there a glaring omission at the moment from this world that you're so involved in? At the TXP and Restless Egg event recently, game designer and AI researcher William Freudheim presented a demo while on a video call from the US, in which he said that he thinks it's important that systems are developed which allow artists to maintain creative control without having to dive too deep into the technical aspects. I think what he was expressing is it can be off-putting to artists if they don't feel that they're that tech savvy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on that. I think that, I mean, I was really quite scared to jump into it because I guess I didn't really have any knowledge on coding or anything before I moved to London. But I also think the fact that, the stuff that I'm doing right now and the stuff that William was doing, it's all open source. So anyone can access it and it's all there. It's just about kind of, obviously there is a barrier if you don't have a laptop and the means to do it. But I also think collaboration's just been like very, very good to explore in my practice. And I think using these open source platforms like GitHub to like learn from other people or look at their code, and it's very accessible to most people. Yeah.
How do you want your creations to make people feel? I understand it's going to vary project to project, but just thinking broadly here, and I'm wondering if you hope that people interpret in line or somewhat so with the initial intentions behind them coming from you, or are you quite happy for people to interpret them how they wish?
I am happy for people to interpret it how they wish, but I hope that it'll spark someone to go, okay, I'm interested in this, and how can I get involved somehow, or even want to talk to me, or like I'm always very open to like speak to people about my projects, and then if they're interested, how they can perhaps help or get involved. For example, the money trees thing, like if that spurs someone on to like want to come and join the project, then yeah, that's like great. But yeah, and like kind of just like more appreciation for nature, I guess.
I presume your preferred art technique is painting by hand. Is that true?
Yeah.
Why is that? You know, you've got such a arsenal of amazing digital tools with which to make art, but actually physically paintbrush to canvas.
Yeah.
Is it a sort of tactile, physical thing for you that you enjoy more about it?
Yeah, it's very therapeutic for me. I even enjoy the process of building the canvas and stretching the canvas with rabbit skin glue and I don't know, and then setting it all up and then drawing out the paint. Like that process to me is like, I don't know, there's something very satisfying about that. And then completing the painting, which is never really complete, but yeah. And then hoarding them in my room until I'm like, all right to sell them.
How do you keep on top of evolving technologies and the art world? Are there particular publications you read or events that you like to go to? Maybe art collectives put on events such as the one that we were both at recently. How do you sort of keep abreast of what's new and what's emerging?
Yeah, I think I'm quite bad for it, but I like eFlux and keeping up with friends, really, just kind of following where the crowd kind of goes to each opening event, seeing what new things are kind of happening. And I think with like the tech side of things, it's always kind of keeping in touch with my tech friends and then going out for a drink with them and what's happening with their world and how are they exploring it, and then what artists are they looking at, and then kind of just doing research, really.
And networking, I presume, is quite an important part of your job?
Yeah, which is also quite hard to keep in touch, keep up with, because now I've got like a really wide array of network that I'm like, okay, kind of have to choose my battles sometimes.
What key advice do you have for people who are starting out in your industry?
Keep going.
Keep going, okay.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I think that like sometimes I have bad days where I'm like, what am I even doing, you know? And even with the painting thing, I think that's why I wanted to go away from it for a while, because it was like, I don't know, some people, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that people say like painting's like dead and like no one like is interested in it anymore. But anyway, so I kind of went down that rabbit hole for a bit and was like, okay, what else can I explore? But I think like if you just take it day by day and also just doing like loads of research and loads of reading on like the subject that you're interested in, something will spark in you to make something else. Like every single project that I do, that I'm always just like, I don't know how I'm going to do anything else other than this. And then another idea comes and then you continue on with that and you speak to your friends about it and you...
I understand that you've explored concepts in your work such as machine microbiome and biological machines. And you mentioned biological machinery earlier. And you mentioned biological machines earlier. Can you explain what these are?
Yeah, so like I think, so machine microbiome, I think Annika, you actually coined that term, where kind of this idea, again, where the boundaries are like really blurred between like machine intelligence and nature intelligence and then human intelligence. It's kind of like, it's all like, can machines just exist as machines? She's explored that a lot in her practice, as their own intelligent beings, and we can just coexist with them in the world like we do with nature. And yeah, that's kind of the ideas that come to me when I think about that.
So biological machines, machine microbiome, it's kind of, they're interchangeable.
Yeah,
concepts.
so biological machines is when the machines that we are making today basically mimic that of nature, that of organisms that already exist, to enhance the uses of the technology that we're making. And then machine microbiome is kind of a term that Annika coined, where I guess, can these machines be their own kind of organisms and we can coexist and they can kind of live harmoniously with humans and nature.
Something I'm looking into actually at the moment is research conducted by Simon Colton at the at Queen Mary, University of London, called the machine condition. So it's looking at whether machines have life in some way that humans do. It's obviously not the same, but where, for instance, AI-assisted art might be art that is mimicking human expression, so expression of human life, experiences, character. What he's looking at is, well, machines actually have input. They have some kind of, a life.
Yeah.
It's not life by definition as we understand it. So he's sort of examining whether a machine could actually express artistically its own life through the inputs it's received and its own character, which I think is a fascinating concept.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah, because like you'll think about these LLMs or the large language models that are built, or they do have a world of their own. Because yes, it probably came from one human, whenever it got fed that information, but it's got all this data that's like, I guess, interacting with itself within its model, and I don't know. I like to think of them as, I don't know. They're like, because we're like part machine now. We're like basically.
Yeah, and I think, and also with large language models, they're pre-trained on vast amounts of data, and they can only work off what they've been fed. But I suppose you could argue, well, if I go out and read voraciously or listen to loads of different podcasts or pieces of music, I'm being inspired by what I'm receiving. Yeah. So there's quite interesting parallels there. And I think the broader public perhaps are a little scared of or think that there's greater differences between man and machine than there actually is.
Yeah.
And obviously there are huge contrasts, but I like to think we're more in parallel with them than
then they're
perhaps,
more prevalent as. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Do you use any AI in your work at all?
I have in the past. I think maybe I will. I might integrate it into this game map when I use the iTree API to like manipulate the map for the real-time stuff. But in the past, I made a confession booth with a chatbot inside it, which was, I worked with, what's the, DeepMind. Okay. I did a collaboration with DeepMind where I made a confession booth with a chatbot inside it, and I basically fed it data from the Bible into their neural network, and then when you spoke to this chatbot, you would basically confess a sin, and then it would give you back quotes from the Bible. So it was kind of like this idea of talking to a confession booth, or
a priest,
a priest, or I guess you could compare it to I guess like speaking to a fanatic, or as like you're like giving away all your data to big tech companies.
Interesting. And kind of the title of that was Bible something, wasn't it?
It was Bible studies. Yeah.
Bible studies.
Yeah.
I did have a little visit to the website.
Yeah, that should still exist. I actually might need to update that.
And finally, I suppose, what are your ambitions? Where do you want your career to take you? Is this, are you wanting to remain in visual arts for the long foreseeable?
Yeah, definitely. I just want to be an artist, to be honest. But I think, for this year, I'm, I've got a studio right now for 6 months, and then I'm kind of hoping to go and do a residency, hopefully in Italy, and then in summer, and then just show my work and continue to make projects, I guess, that mean a lot to me, and then hopefully inspire people.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Rachy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for watching The Maker's Memo. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. We'll be back next time.